my dash cam has started playing up. Well, it's been playing up for a while. It basically, when you power it up, it instead of just powering up cleanly, it does its wee sort of musical intro thing, and then it starts shimmering and flickering the screen. And I get the feeling from the fact that it doesn't seem to last very long when you disconnect it, that the battery inside the lithium cell has failed. And that's possibly due to the fact this gets absolutely baked in the sunshine as well. So I'm going to open up and take a look, and I've already looked out a suitable screwdriver. I've ascertained there are screws visible here, probably one under this label, and a couple on the bottom too. So let's take these screws out. Let's take the memory card out first so I don't mash it. Let's get that out. So let's just push this right through this label. Warranty void, not really too bothered about that. And we'll see what's inside. That screw is just turning but not coming out. That's nice. And a couple of screws in the bottom too. And hopefully this will more or less come apart. It may need unclipped after these screws have been taken out. It just depends how they've assembled it. That is annoying that that screw is sticking over there. That is slightly annoying indeed, but let's try. Let's get the spudger into it and spudge it apart without pushing this into the point that it may actually go into the lithium cell. That's a promising start. I can see a little LED light. Yeah, it just tried powering up there, but the lithium cell is just not holding a charge at all. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the lithium cell at fault, but it is a prime suspect. Am I going to be able to get this screw out if I apply a bit of pressure to the case here? Just to give a thread something to catch onto? No, I don't think it's going to come out. Oh well, brute force then. There we go. So what am I seeing here? I'm seeing the ribbon cable for the loudspeaker, so let's unclip that. I think it's the type that hinges up. I should say ribbon cable for the screen. Yeah, it's the type that hinges up, so that's the screen off. Is this held in with screws, or is it just satin? I think it may actually just be satin. Let's gently prise at this. I'm not seeing screws, but likewise it doesn't feel like it's coming out too easily. Let's get another screwdriver in. This one comes to hand. Try not short stuff out. Oh, there's a screw. Subtle. So this looks like the arrangement whereby there may be one or two screws, there's another one, that then it hinges up after you've removed those. So I'll keep those screws, I was going to say I'm going to keep them separate in case they're different sizes, but well, they're all mixed up now. Okay. Is this going to lift out? The speaker needs liberated. There's the lithium cell in the back. There's the camera connection. Let's see if I can just prise this speaker out. I think it's stuck in. Yeah, it's glued in by a little foam disc. There's the camera connection, and there's the cell, and the lithium cell looks a bit puffy to me. So I would say that is a prime suspect. So let's disconnect the camera from this, if we can get the camera unhooked here. It's the one that you push the little things up at the side. And let's gently lever this lithium cell out. There's not a lot of space in here for a new cell, is there? Oh, that is very, very puffy. That's a very sad lithium cell. So I'm going to cut these wires. I'm going to cut those wires. Maybe I won't cut the wires. How much space do I have in here for a new lithium cell? Can I put a bigger lithium cell in? I'm going to go and investigate, see what I've got in the way of cells that might fit in this. So I found another cell. It's a wee bit bigger than the other one, but I'm pretty sure it's going to fit in okay in there. I think it does have the space to put that in. I'll find out when I actually try putting it together. And this one does the protection circuit. Now, the first thing I did, just to make things simpler for connecting, I actually put a resistor across this and measured the voltage until it was completely discharged. The reason I did that was just so that I'm not connecting it and I'm going to have live circuitry while I'm messing about with this thing. So the first thing I'm doing here is desoldering the original leads, and I've already made a wee red dot to show the polarity here so that I can get the new leads on without mixing them up, and I've already tinned the leads on the circuit board. So let's just, keeping that bit of Captain tape out the way, let's flow a bit of new lead-based solder onto that. And that pad. And then solder the new leads on. What's the best way to do this? I'm going to be folding that down. So I could do it the way they originally had it, which was to have the wires coming from the other side, but I get the feeling that when they did that, the battery protection circuit board had those wires pre-attached. So I'm not sure it's going to be so easy to do that. Let's give it a go. It may be easier just soldering on from the other side. You know, I think it is going to be easier soldering on from the other side, but I've started, so I'll finish. And I want to make sure that when I solder this, that the wire is well away from the adjacent terminal there, because I don't want it bridging onto that, because that would bypass the protection. And now the black wire, and this is where I find out if the little circuit has recovered, because the little camera might boot up and make a noise when I connect this. If the voltage has recovered enough to take the protection off it. That is, I'm really messing that up just because I got it on the first time, but then kind of messed it up a little bit. I think that's okay. Rightio. And then I'm going to put a bit of Captain tape across there. So let's get the Captain tape in. Captain tape, or this stuff is called Coptan tape, to avoid probably copyright. I'm going to put a little bit underneath that circuit board area so that I can fold the circuit board back onto it. Because that's how these things are normally arranged, just to avoid things shorting out. Is that right? I think it is. And then a bit of tape round the outside of that. I'll try and stay in shot here. I've zoomed in quite excessively just to catch that detail there. So let's put this round like that. Can't have enough insulation, or insulation if you wish to use Queen's English. And then, let's see, how's this going to... See, there's the chip, the main processor, and it's going to get pretty hot. And you'd think that means that when the battery is directly in the vicinity, it's being clamped in by that. That's not really going to help with temperature, is it? Except, of course, this circuit is on the other side. Okay, right, I'll take that back then. So that's the side that I shall put the tape on. I wonder how hot it gets inside. I've made a mess of the tape, but that's all right. The main thing is the tape is in place and everything's short circuit proof. And that looks pretty good. Right, so let's zoom back out a little bit so that I don't completely go off frame, as I so often do. Get these little bits of tape out the way before they end up everywhere. Let's put the camera connector back on. So this little thing pulls out the way. And the contacts appear to go up the way. Always very fishy, these little ribbon cables are always quite difficult to get in. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Yeah, they're very, very... This is where I've damaged so many things in the past by, You know, you're trying to get the ribbon cable in or out, and you end up damaging it because it's so easy to do. It can tear. And when it does tear, that's pretty much game over. It's quite difficult to exercise a repair once that's happened. This is very, very irksome. It's trying to push its little wedge in as it goes in. So I think that should be it locked. That looks like it's locked. I'll find out when I put it back together. The battery tucks in underneath. There wasn't anything really sticking the battery in, so I'll just lay it in. Make sure there's nothing that's going to puncture it in any way. Then this hooks under there. Is it going down? Is it comfortably going down? It's not comfortably going down. That's not good. The battery may be too big. Or can I change the orientation of the battery? Can I put it that way? There's not a lot of space in these things. Oh, that's gone down nicely. Okay, that's reassuring. That has sat down properly. I don't think it's squeezing the battery. That's good. So let's put the little speaker back into its position. I'll deliberately angle the connections so it leaves room for the little fold-up flap for the screen. And let's put a couple of screws in, just to lock all this in position. So one screw in here. And one screw in over here, wherever it went. I can't actually even remember where it went. I think it might have been here. We'll find out if it doesn't go in. I've probably drilled it right through a battery pack or something in there. This is looking promising. Let's connect the screen. Also very footery. The screen's ribbon cable actually goes up the other way. It's a different style of connector. And it's the one where the little flap hinges up. This is very tricky because there's really not much space at all here. It's all very well if the factory workers are doing this every day. They probably just pick it up and just ram it in with very little effort whatsoever, just because they do it all the time. That looks promising. So if I charge this up now, let's get rid of that screw out that was rogue, that one that I just couldn't quite release. It's jammed in. That's annoying, it really is, that screw is. I shall use inappropriate tools to try and get that out. I shall try and grip it with this and then squeeze it up. There we go. And we'll get that label off at the same time. I've already pulled the screw out of that, it's alright. Okay, so is it going to work? That is the question. So when I power this up, I expect I expect to power up straight away, but the battery is already depleted deliberately, so let's plug this in and see what happens. It'll say no memory card. So there's a wee pause while it puts some charge in the battery. And it's back. Please insert SD card. This is all looking pretty promising. And if I leave that for a few seconds so it can take a slight charge, then when I unplug it, if the battery is holding up, I don't think it will have enough charge yet, but let's give it a go. No, it's not quite got enough charge yet, but it's going out in a controlled manner, which is good. Okay, right, I'm going to put this together now. I'm going to put this kind of strangely, oddly coloured screw. You know, this screw is corroded. That's why it was stuck in. It's all sort of puffed up with the corrosion of the metal. So let's get that back in. Clip the case together here. And that should be the battery changed, and it should be good. The main thing when you're doing this is to make sure that nothing is going to get shorted out in there, because if it does, you could potentially set your car on fire. Yeah, that's a worst case scenario. I like to think of the worst case scenarios just because, you know, such things could happen, particularly with something that's got a much larger battery in it. But with these ones, I don't think capacity is high enough to cause any super major issues. Having said that, that one would theoretically be around about 500 milliamp hour, I would think, roughly for its size. Maybe less. Not sure, it didn't have any print on it. That alone is probably a warning as to just, you know, the fact it is a fairly generic manufacturing type cell. And that should be it back together. I stick the memory card in, if I can remember which way it goes in. And theoretically, that should be me back in action, so I'll give that a go and see if it works. Well, that solved the problem completely, which is good, because that's sort of given that camera a new lease of life. And one of the things I noticed was when I plugged it in, there was still a bit of electrical noise, and that was the noise you get from the processing of the image data and stuff like that, creating electrical noise on the power lines. And that getting amplified by the built-in amplification circuitry for the speaker. And I'm guessing that was down to the fact they may be using the lithium cell inside as part of the smoothing circuitry. But it also suggests that the plug-in power supply, the 12 volt to 5 volt adapter, may be putting out more noise than it should. So I'll also probably whip that open and I'll change the output smoothing capacitor, because that is the biggest culprit for that. But it's interesting how this cell puffed up. I wonder what caused that. It might just have been the fact it wasn't a very, very hot case, because in the peak of summer, the sun goes straight through the windscreen and the camera has a black case. It heats it up to quite high temperature, high enough that the camera sometimes won't even start, which isn't an ideal situation. And when this puffs up, because it relies on a sort of being sealed under sort of, I don't know if they put a vacuum in this or not, but being sealed in a way that all the plates inside the foils that are wrapped around each other are pressed together. When it puffs up, it kind of makes them go sort of high impedance. It makes them, they're not able to deliver either the capacity or the sort of current, because there simply isn't the same amount of material and physical contact around the whole cell as with the new cell before it was puffed up. So this cell was actually called an 042025, which that's 25mm by 20mm by 4mm, I think. And the one thing I've done with this is I've cut off the little protection circuit, because it's the classic type that uses the DW01 protection chip and the dual MOSFET, and that provides various functions. It provides overcharge, over discharge, usually cutting off at 4.2 volts and 2.5 volt on the discharge side. And it also will detect too high a voltage across the MOSFETs if there's too much current being drawn, and it'll also shut them off if that happens. So it's a useful little circuit board to salvage. I could always put that onto another lithium cell that doesn't have protection. But yeah, interesting and fairly easy fix to change that if you've been taking lots of things apart like I have and you have some of these cells knocking about.